Call to order the meeting of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District Board of Managers on November 17, 2022. All managers are present except Manager Maxwell. I see no members of the public, so let's jump down to the consent agenda. We're going to remove item 7.1, make it 11.1. With that change, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I move approval of the agenda.
That wasn't what I asked for, but thank you. That's what I needed to ask for.
I'll second that.
Those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Dick teased me on the straight and narrow there all the time.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to second? Second motion.
Second.
Manager Hajmati seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't have any meetings to report on, so I'll turn to the committees and then come back to the mod business that we have tonight. So Manager Miller, Policy and Planning Committee report, please.
We had a comprehensive report from the district administrator, who's currently James Whisker, on the progress he's made on the transition plan he presented to us 4 years ago, and it was well received, and we've got we developed an agenda for a retreat on further actions to be taken for the next 4 years. So it's a very good report.
Wonderful. And there was a second item.
The Long Lake Sub-Watershed District report, which is coming along very well, and the staff has done a phenomenal job on that, and it'll be ready to roll out after the first of the year with our partners, Long Lake, Morno, and Medina, as well as Long Lake Association.
Thank you. Those are both good reports. Citizens Advisory Committee meeting report, Manager Hajmati.
Yes. The main item on the agenda was the presentation of the diagnostic. They had done, they'd used SurveyMonkey to survey, the staff and board and all of that. And so they were presenting that. And so that was most of the discussion. And it was a very, as always at the CAC, a very lively discussion with a lot of input. It was done in a hybrid format, and they had people up on these screens, people with their faces up on the screens, and it was really interesting to see that it actually worked quite well to blend, those of us who were sitting on the table with the people who were being shown on the screen. It worked quite well.
Okay.
It was really interesting. I thought it worked quite well. What they would say, I don't know. They might think it was not as lively and as alive, but it seemed, I got a sense that everybody contributed when they were talking. It's like nobody hung back. Everybody jumped in. And I noticed that John, who was running the meeting, made sure that he called on the people who were there. So, do you have anything to say? So he engaged them and didn't let them just float off into anonymity. And so it was really interesting to see that experiment worked quite well. There was just a few interesting points I'll share that came up, and one of the things they asked about was, they asked, what does the CAC bring to the staff and the board? These are questions they asked, right? And they said, we are not sure. We need to know. You talk to us, you say these things, but what do we actually do for you? And so that is one of the questions that they had. Peter made a further thing saying, does the public know the contribution that MCWD is giving back to them? Does the public know what we're doing? And it was another interesting question. Does the, like, do the neighborhood associations, do they know, for example, how MCWD is contributing to their lifestyles? So that is another question. And John was saying, one of the things John said is, I would like to know, I would like for us to be told, here is your contribution that you made specifically that made a difference. Like, for example, the Nokomis presentation that you made, they gave that as an example and said, when it was being, it was a lively discussion, and we felt we really helped James with the presentation, to be, so that, we were a supportive audience who was being hostile deliberately to help you when you went into what could be a potentially hostile situation. And that's an example of the contribution that John was saying. It would be helpful to us to know specifically what we did that helped. So that was one of the things they said. Yeah, that was probably the most important things. They want to know what, and tell us what to do. We really want to help. Tell us how you want us to help you, and tell us that it works, and tell us how it works. That sort of feedback was the big picture that I got from them. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We, of course, have the MAUD annual meeting coming up December 1st to 3rd, and each district who's a member, as we are, can send 2 delegates and an alternate. So the first question is, who is registered to go? Manager Olson, I have.
I'm thinking of going.
Okay.
So are we going to run into a problem with quorum?
No,
Okay.
no.
Because there's a board meeting on Thursday, right?
I'm going to go up on, with a quorum here, do you mean?
You have quorum here.
I thought you meant, were we taking a quorum to the meeting? I will be here Thursday night, and as far as I know, only Manager Olson.
You're coming
will
back
not.
on Thursday night too?
No, I'll be up there.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
A quorum's 4, so I'm sure we're fine.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for asking.
Okay.
So is there a motion to appoint 2 delegates from this board?
I move the president appoint delegates.
Well, I suggest that we have Manager Olson and I be delegates, Manager Hechmati be an alternate, and I would make that a motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I assume you are willing to do that, gentlemen. We have in our packet the resolutions that will be taken up at the meeting, and some comments that staff has given us regarding them. So the first, I'll look for discussion. The first one is concerning the interagency report on reuse of stormwater and rainwater, and having watershed be represented there. Any thoughts about that beyond what staff has commented? And maybe I could have you, whoever wrote these, give a brief mention of what was said from staff.
Thank you.
Becky, yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I can just step briefly through each.
Sure.
if you like. Yeah, so, yeah, the first one really is just supporting that MOD have a representative at the table for the Department of Health's work group related to stormwater reuse, which makes sense, be a beneficial thing to track, so I don't think there's much concern there or much to talk about. The second resolution is related to the limited liability protection legislation for smart salting that has been, I think, in discussion for quite a while and is just continuing to to be supported by MOD. And again, that's sort of carryover from past years, so I think from staff's perspective, that continues to be a reasonable approach and strategy to push for. The third item, and yeah, feel free to jump in if there's questions on any of them, is looking for increased support and participation in the Minnesota Drainage Work Group, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've had a lot of engagement, just given sort of our relatively limited role in drainage system management, and haven't really had much issues. So I'm personally not too familiar with kind of how that work group's functioning, but just looking to, again, have more participation in that group from MOD. So no concerns there. Let's see, resolution number 4 is clarification in statute for Watershed District project establishment, and this is under 103D 605, which isn't what we use generally in the metro for project establishment, and it sounds like it is really just sort of cleanup of, I think, some language that's maybe just sort of not clearly laid out and isn't really in line with the legislature's intent, so that wouldn't make sense from staff and legal counsel's perspective. Resolution number 5 is regarding pursuing funding for Red River Watershed Management Board for flood damage reduction. Again, no real direct implications for us, but no concerns either from staff's perspective. Resolution number 6 is related to is urging that MOD work with the DNR to seek legislation to address potential impacts from wake boats, essentially both in terms of shoreline impacts, stirring up the bottom, and also looking at AIS, the spread of AIS with wake boats. And it references, some recent findings from the University of Minnesota SAFA lab and some other studies. And this is something we've been, generally tracking the research, and it seems reasonable to support, ongoing research and exploring some science-based solutions based on those findings. So no real concerns there. Let's see, resolution number 7 is related to limiting excessive use of groundwater for watering urban and suburban landscapes during the summer, and urging MOD or having MOD urge the DNR to look into this. And the resolution committee did not recommend adoption for this one. I think this is the only one that they recommended not adopting because they felt that it was overly broad and unclear in terms of what it was intended to address and whether that was sort of the right approach to it. And I think from our assessment and legal counsel's input, we would agree it probably isn't the right way to go about addressing the issue. So agreed with the recommendation there. And then finally, resolution number 8 is another one that's sort of carrying over from last year, I believe, regarding increased flexibility in open meeting law to utilize interactive technology. And I think this one, the resolutions committee did not provide a recommendation on one way or the other. And one thing that we noted and had noted last year as well is just that there'd likely be pushback because this would apply more broadly than just for watershed districts. It would be for any local units of government subject to open meeting law, and there'd likely be some strong opposition to just kind of the reduced transparency of going that route. But the resolutions committee didn't have a recommendation one way or the other, so I'm not sure how that will be advanced or if the board has thoughts on that.
Thank you very much. Are there resolutions that board members would like to pull out for discussion? I know that we'll return to number 8. Mr. Smith had a comment here. All right, then let's, Manager Loftus.
Can we talk about number 6?
Okay, yeah.
Whether it's limiting activities or further research, what we're supporting exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, Manager Leff said, I believe there was both.
Okay. The committee recommendation is at the bottom, if I can get that far. Okay, the committee recommendation is to adopt it contingent upon the proposer providing the specific location within the St. Anthony Falls Laboratory research findings that support items A, B, and C.
It was, yes, to urging MOD to work with the DNR to seek legislation to limit lakes and areas of lakes where wake boats may operate, to require that operating wake boats be designed to allow ballast tanks to be decontaminated, and to fund further research on the impacts of wake boats.
My recollection is that the SAFL has done part of the research, but is going to go back and do more. Are you up to date on that, Bill?
I am not.
Okay. Mr. Whisker?
That's correct, President White. They've conducted one phase of research on just the energy that are generated, differential energy between normal boat and wake boats. That was first phase. Second phase is looking at sediment resuspension, which I believe they've done the field work for that this past summer, and are going to be getting into peer review and report writing. And then there's a third and final phase that will bring everything together and outline recommendations.
Thank you. And I'm reading the resolution here. It actually says, MOD will work with Minnesota DNR to utilize the findings and seek legislation to achieve one or more of the following. So it's, and the committee says, let's make that contingent on specific information, I guess, from SAFL.
So the resolution does not change the law. The resolution says we resolve to work with the DNR and learn more about this.
Yeah.
To achieve, no, but what you want to achieve is limiting
Okay.
the lakes and areas of lakes for wake boats, correct?
Yes, it's one of three. Draining ballast tanks and further research funding. Thank you.
I like B and C.
Tell me what you think about A then.
I don't know enough about it to support the, I don't mind research. I think it's definitely a topic of needing information and knowledge, but I don't know that we're in a position to support achieving limiting the lakes.
They're trying
What
to,
that should be.
essentially, as I understand it, they're trying to drive the wake boats away from shallow areas where the
Yeah.
horsepower is driven down into the bottom and stirs up the bottom. So that means instead of 150 feet, 300 feet from docks and in deeper waters. So if you've got a bay that's only 6 feet deep, that bay would be off limits for that kind of activity.
And the DNR needs the Minnesota Association of Watershed Districts to support that work.
We're an influencer. So this is a resolution that says we would work with them and be a member of the team.
There's a bill that did not pass, introduced by Representative Acom, that was included in the packet. I did not reread it this morning, so I can't remember what it says. But supporting the resolution doesn't delineate what action,
Right.
what the bill should say. Or no, Acom's was about salting, I'm sorry, my mistake. I think it's okay to support this because you're not dictating what the action would be with the committee recommendation folded in. We're not ready to say what the rules should be yet, are we?
Yeah, I don't know what it should be.
Anything else you want to add in there?
Mm-mm.
Then, I apologize, my phone's being noisy. Let's go to Resolution 8. This is concerning open meeting law. And Mr. Smith, I know that you had some thoughts on this.
Madam President, just to recognize, I think the comment Christopher made that this certainly is an issue for more than just watershed districts, and cities, counties, townships would all want to weigh in. Our only other comment is we have suggestions for improving the legislative language that was attached to the resolution, and we'll share that at MAUD, so that we think if you want to pursue this goal, the language should be a little cleaner.
Okay, we'll watch for that then. In the past, I think the board has just said to the delegates, go and make your best judgment, things will evolve or change. But I appreciate the comments that we've gotten here.
I guess I would just ask you to relay that research is supported, but limiting and not knowing what that would be isn't necessarily supported by me anyway.
Okay.
Just so that the public understands, when these resolutions come up for discussion, there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons in that room. And there'll be people on the left and people on the right walking up to microphones, and they'll give an opinion. Some of these are very focused on a watershed in the upper northern part of the state, and a major issue to them, but not so much everybody else. So as long as nobody is offended by the rule or that it would adversely affect their watershed, they tend to let it go, let it be supported. But if there are some things here that really bother people, I mean, you might have a wakeboard manufacturer stand up and really hammer at no limits, that kind of a thing. You may also have lake associations that want to be represented, and they'll have their own way of getting into the discussion. But it goes back and forth, and then when they're all done, then we vote. So knowing how we feel is what we're doing here, and trying to get to the point where we can say that we're good representatives of MCWD.
I think at this meeting, only members can speak, though.
Right.
And then after the resolutions are adopted by the members, they go to the board and the legislative committee, and they get put into a sieve of priority and opportunity. And so it doesn't mean that they'll be actively pursued necessarily.
Right.
They'll be slotted in somewhere they belong.
And that's why things that haven't been enacted over the years keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back.
We also have a 5-year sunsetting, so
Yep.
they don't last forever.
Oh, they can only come back 5 times?
No, I mean, well, they're good for 5 years,
Oh.
and then if someone wants them, they have to reintroduce them, otherwise they
Gotta
fall off.
I
Do-
see.
Reactivate them,
Oh.
Yes, exactly.
bring them back to life.
All right, then, moving on. Our next meetings are December 1st and 15th. We'll finish out the year. And we'll move to the public hearing or public comments, rather, on the budget and levy. Mr. Whisker.
Thank you, President White and managers. Item number 9.1 tonight, as you just mentioned, is just a final opportunity for public comment on the Watershed District's proposed 2023 budget, and that's pursuant to truth in taxation law. As the board all knows, but for the public's benefit, there's a whole series of budget development meetings that the board worked through in 2022 that culminated in a duly noticed public hearing that you all held on August 22nd, 2022. And through that whole process and through the public hearing, lots of opportunities for public comment and distillation and those inputting and guiding the budget. Subsequent to that, on September 8th, 2022, this board adopted a budget of $14,309,193 and certified a levy of $9,869,513. That represents a 2% increase after 5 years of maintaining a flat levy, approximately $193,000 increase. So that's what brings us here tonight. With that background, we're really just seeing if there are any members of the public that have comment or input into proposed budget and levy.
And no members are here this evening. Did we receive any comments since September?
We have not.
Okay. Then I will close the public comment section. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will move to bring 7.1 back. Mr. Heyman, Resolution 22071.
Great, thank you, Chair White and managers. We just wanted to provide a point of clarification for the managers this evening on item 7.1, the authorization to execute the Environmental Response Fund grant agreement with Hennepin County. It wasn't clear in the RBA that, based on our legal counsel review, there are 2 provisions that we are still reviewing and in conversation with Hennepin County. One concerning an insurance requirement that we would need to adjust, the other related to document management. We don't foresee there being an issue with either of these, and they are non-substantive, but we wanted to call those to your attention because in the instance where they aren't resolved, we will come back before the board for the conversation. So we do not intend to sign the agreement until we've come to some sort of resolution, but the ball has been back in the county's court, and we're just waiting to hear back from them prior to final signatures. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the grant agreement with Hennepin County with any non-substantive changes on advice of legal counsel.
Thank you.
Move
Is
approval.
motion to approve. Is there a second to adopting the resolution?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you, Mr. Heyman, for that
How much is the
elucidation.
grant for?
$287,000.
Item 12.1 is an update on the Minnehaha Preserve Boardwalk. Should we be going directly into closed session, or is there anything else? Mr. Smith, would you state the reason for the closed session?
Madam President, this time we recommend that you go into closed session for the purpose of receiving confidential legal advice concerning litigation strategy in the Minnehaha Preserve Boardwalk litigation.
Thank you. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Manager Olson moves, Manager Hajmati seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Welcome, Mr. Radio. Motion to go back into open session.
So moved.
Manager Miller moves. Is there a second? Manager Hajmati. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in open session, ready for the administrator's report.
Thank you, President White, managers. It's still dry, but we've had some precipitation. So right now, Twin Cities is sitting on 20¼ inches of precip this year, just short of 10 inches below normal. If you've looked outside, we've gotten some snow. So in the first 17 days of November, with some of the drizzle that we had and the snow, we accumulated 1.5 inches of precipitation. Just for context in terms of how dry it's been this year, that 1.5 inches is 3 times more than the total that we received over the entire months of September and October combined. So drought monitor update still keeps the district in extreme drought. That's consistent with just shy of 5% of the state. The lake Minnetonka is still really low, 927.46, so that's 13.6 inches below runout elevation. As I mentioned at last meeting, the dam's been winterized, and so below the dam, if you see any flow, of which there is some very minimal nominal flow, it's just from snow melt and a little bit of rain that we've had working its way through the system.
Okay, Buffalo, New York tonight expects 4 to 6 feet. It's snowing 16
Feet?
inches an hour.
Oof. Wow.
Everyone and then Bill. Go ahead, Manager Hajmati.
Okay. How is all this moisture going to affect the LiDAR?
How is the moisture going to affect the LiDAR? That's a great question. Right now, with the snow, the MnDOT who we're working with has now initiated LiDAR, and unless there's a warm snap, they're probably not going to get to fly it this season. So that's something that we're keeping an eye on. I talked to Brian about it before the meeting, and we'd report back in December. There is supposed to be some nominal warming on Thanksgiving, but there's a decent chance we don't get the LiDAR we were hoping for.
Okay.
Manager Olson?
The numbers, I'm having a hard time with the numbers. You said we're at
Oh, dear.
927.0, correct?
I'm, got plausible deniability here, because these are the notes that Tiffany provided me, so I
Okay.
don't have our dashboard in front of me, but the current lake level for Lake Minnetonka, I've heard is 927.4.
0.4, okay, thank you.
13.6 inches below run-out elevation and 928.6.
Okay, so 928.
If you're getting that specific, 927.46 feet,
Thank you, it all works now, thank
which
you.
is 13.68. Okay, great.
Excellent.
Keeping me honest. Any other questions about moisture, water levels?
For the extreme weather on television, they're showing flooding with cars, water to the windows. And they're showing our dam with the poles that keep the boats from going through the dam. So we're the poster child on television now for extreme drought,
Where did you see that?
Channel 4.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And we're talking about two weather extremes. They keep bringing up a photograph of our dam where the water can't even go out.
Moving on, after Thanksgiving, staff's going to be looking to regroup with our Minneapolis and Minneapolis Park and Rec Board liaisons. That's President White, Manager Miller, and Manager Hedgemati, just for a briefing. We're going to update you on the planning process that we're actively negotiating with the Minneapolis staff. And we'll be getting a briefing from Mike's team on the priorities that are emerging from all of the information that we've gathered from their respective plans and how we're layering that together and what we would recommend as our top 2 or 3 chase priorities. So we'll get a report back from the liaisons after we have a conversation with them between now and Christmas. There's a couple of requests for proposals that have recently closed that Research and Monitoring and Project Planning is working on. One is related to the 2D model that the board authorized. That's for the standardization of stormwater infrastructure data. So essentially a GIS contract to take all of the storm sewer data from cities, stack that, normalize it. And the other one's for the East Auburn Wetland Restoration Feasibility Study. It sounds like both of those informational meetings went quite well, and both RFPs garnered a number of, multiple responses, so we're in the review process. Those will be back in front of you with December 1st bringing the GIS consultant recommendations forward, and then December 15th meeting will be East Auburn Wetland Feasibility Selection. A couple presentations happening that are coming up for those of you that are going to MAUD. You might have seen it before, but it's worth seeing about 5 times. Mike Heyman's presenting Arden Park at the Minnesota Association of Watershed Districts Conference, and then you're not invited to this one, but I'm really excited to have been invited back for the 2nd year in a row to present at Lewis Smith's law class tomorrow. And he told me he has an important meeting he has to leave for, so I'm going to get to be the professor for 15 to 20 minutes too. So I got to get home and prepare tonight to make sure that I do a good job. And then finally, I'd given an update at the last meeting just about some of the human resource updates. And we've completed final round of interviews for the manager position for project maintenance and land management. We had a decent pool when it came down to it, and we've made an offer that's been accepted to Mr. Joshua Wolf. He's going to be starting December 19th, and he's joining us from the Salt Lake County Department of Environmental Health, relocating back to this region to be closer to his folks that are out in New Glarus, Wisconsin. And he's bringing with him what we gleaned from the interview. And he did fly into town, and we get to meet and greet and do some field visits to just get a closer look and understand some of the things that we picked up in the first round interview, which were his deep passion for water management. And those are the types of people that we're looking for. He's just got an obvious drive, a real creative spark. He seems very curious intellectually and is shown some application at his current position in data-driven planning. So he's kind of a data nerd and will be a good partner in crime, not only for Tiffany, but I think Brian internally. So we're looking forward to introducing him to the board in January once he gets settled in. Like I said, with his start date of December 19th.
What was his job until then?
He has had a number of positions that have evolved. So he's working in a drinking water protection supply, overseeing regional stormwater management facilities that have been put out into the community. But he's also had some sort of trials by fire forged in the crucible of the pandemic. So his, being in the Department of Environmental Health, got called into action through the pandemic to take about, I think, 17 people and develop a homeless population transportation plan and sort of modified approach to housing and shelter for the homeless community due to COVID-19 issues. So he's had a lot of examples where he's been thrown into work that he hasn't had the experience to do, and has shown, I think, an adept problem-solving nature, which is something that we look for as sort of key to our staff. And we've seen that with our own team, of being able to tackle problems that they haven't handled before. So we have a range of different experience, from drinking water to stormwater monitoring to other public health issues in Salt Lake County. That's what I have for the administrator's report this evening, but happy to go off script and see if there's questions about anything else.
No questions, it looks like. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Whisker.
Thank you.
The meeting is adjourned.